Here are my top 5 likes and dislikes for my 2022 Subaru BRZ that I've had for about 18 months and driven for about 14,000 miles. Number 1, functionality. Functionality of this car for being a rear-wheel drive, 6-speed manual, 228 horsepower, 2,900 or less pound car is very good. I would say probably the best that you can find anywhere. You can get 2 adults in here very comfortably, and you can also get 2 kids behind each front seat fairly easily as well. So yes, it's a 4-seater. Each back seat has car seat attachment hook points. So I get my 2 kids in here on a regular basis, and we can the whole family, all 4 of us can go to Costco or go to Walmart or do whatever we want to do and get a surprising number of groceries in the back in the trunk. Another great thing is that the back seat, the seat back folds down and it creates a huge space that's perfectly level. And I fit a full-size 88 key keyboard in here before, with the passenger front seat pushed forward all the way on its rails, and the back seat folded down, and it still fit, with the trunk fully closed. So it's pretty great that way for functionality. Way better than like a used 911 or a Miata. Obviously doesn't even have the rear seats. I don't think there's anything that compares to it that has the functionality of this and the price point and the driving experience. My second favorite feature that I'll talk about is the differential. It comes with a rear differential, which is pretty great at this price point too, which is sub $30,000. There's not many cars. Even the Miata, I would say, is probably the closest competitor, maybe not direct competitor, but it's fairly close, and you have to get a higher trim level to get the differential, the rear differential, which puts it well over $30,000 for that car. I just don't know of any other new cars or almost new cars that you can get with the rear differential, and so why that's cool is it helps with sliding, and there's also the ability, if you threw some snow tires on this, you can get around through a bunch of snow in the winter time and really daily drive this through the winter thanks to that limited slip differential in the back. So number 3 on the like list is the ergonomics in this cabin. It's very cockpit feeling. Everything is very close, like the wheel and the shifter are, there's not much distance to go between them. The seats are bolstered very well, even in the base trim. There's only 2 trims. It's limited and premium, in the US that is. And all the window controls are very close at hand on your left hand. All the HVAC vents are easily adjustable. And the e-brake, you can't see it on camera, but the e-brake is right here as well. And the HVAC controls are really right here as well. So you hardly have to take your hand very far off the wheel to adjust anything. Also, the nav screen is super close too. So just a good, tight feeling cockpit. Some people talk about it being claustrophobic. I don't feel that way ever. I just feel like it's perfectly situated around me, and so great ergonomics overall. My next like, again, in no particular order, is the handling. This car handles really well. Part of that is because how light it is. It's sub 2,900 pounds, without a passenger in it. So very light, and it's very eager to rotate and change direction. The center of gravity is very low, and even with the base Prius tires on it, it handles really well. It's just a lot of fun. The steering is direct and responsive. Some people complain that the steering in the second gen isn't as good as the first gen, but if it's not as good, it's very close, because it's a lot of fun and very engaging to toss through the corners. I will say the Subaru variant, which I'm driving right now, is not as eager as I was hoping that it would be to get sideways in the corners. It tends to default to understeer in the corners, and I haven't driven a GR86, which is the Toyota version of this vehicle, but supposedly that's a little more eager to get the tail out, even in normal everyday driving. Don't get me wrong, you still can get the tail out here, but it takes a lot more throttle input and steering input at the same time than I would have expected, especially on these Michelin Primacy tires. So the 5th thing, and again, not in order of likes that I have with this car, after driving it almost 14,000 miles and having it about 18 months, is the ride. It's surprisingly good. It exceeded my expectations by quite a wide margin. I expected, here's a little sideways, just a hint of it. I expected a rough and kind of punishing ride, what it is at all. It's pretty compliant. There's a decent amount of body roll, which some people like, some people dislike. I think it just helps communicate a little bit more with the body roll, so I don't mind it. But it's very well damped and sprung, I guess, from the factory for the type of driving, which is daily driving, that I want to do around here. I will say two things. I'm in Tennessee, and I'm in an area where the roads are actually surprisingly, they're very great overall. So I don't have a lot of potholes, I'm not in the snow belt, and I don't have to deal with the issues that ice and salt do or cause with roads and road surfaces. So the overall road condition around here where I drive a lot is great. So I will say that too. If my opinion might change if we were in the snow belt and there is a bunch of rough concrete roads, but most of it is smooth asphalt around here where I drive, even on the interstate. Secondly, I will also say I'm in Tennessee, and the climate is pretty mild compared to the northern states. I've heard that the ride in these stock suspension setup gets significantly rougher when the temperature drops a lot. And I don't have a lot of experience, in fact, probably no experience driving in 0-degree weather. I think the lowest I've driven it in is probably mid-20s, lower 20s, maybe teens. And it was a little bit rougher, but I can imagine that if you're in an area of the country that you're living in, you know, single digits and teens, as far as temperature goes, during the winter months, it would be rougher and a little more punishing of a ride. Okay, dislikes. Again, not in a particular order, or maybe it is subconsciously, I don't know. But the first one that I will say is the Rev Hang. The Rev Hang in this car, some people will say it's really bad. Some people will say it's not so bad. You can live with it, you get used to it. I would be in the it's really bad camp. It takes away a decent amount of the joy in driving. I've been driving a stick for 20 years, and I mean, I feel like I'm very competent in that. All kinds of cars. I've never had the issue that I've had in this car with rev matching. You know, if you're coming to a stop or coming to slow down or turn a corner and you're going, you know, downshifting from fourth to third to second, or even from third to second, it's almost impossible to hit the rev match, you know, to downshift and rev match perfectly each time. Basically, when you do it, you're getting lucky. There's so much pedal travel and delay of response also in the pedal that you just have to almost mash it and hope that it kind of jumps up the engine RPMs jump up where you need it to go to rev match to your speed. So there's really no precise way that you can do that every time. Kind of related to the Rev Hang is the throttle mapping, like I kind of alluded to. I really dislike it in this car, and I hear that it might be slightly different in the Toyota GR86. But in this car, it feels like, the best way I could describe it is, it feels like there's a big, kind of loose rubber band that is between the pedal and the engine. And so what I mean by that is there's just a big delay, and when you give it revs, it just doesn't, the engine doesn't respond quickly, and there's a noticeable delay. And so that can be kind of frustrating too. So yeah, I would say the Rev Hang has definitely taken away some of the joy of the otherwise, you know, really exceptional, especially for the price point, driving characteristics of this car. Another dislike I have is the noise of the engine. And so I'll say kind of two things about this. That goes for the, you know, the piped in sound, or whatever you want to call it, through the speakers, the synthesized speaker sound that they put in this car from the factory. And I guess there's a dedicated speaker in the dash somewhere that they use to, you know, pipe that sound in the cabin. That sound was very annoying, I guess, after a while. I thought it was cool at first, but it really is kind of harsh, and it makes you feel like you're abusing the car in a way, even when you're only driving it and revving up to like 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. It's pretty loud. And it's not annoying in the way that it's loud, it's just annoying in the way that the tone is. Again, it makes you feel like you're abusing the car or something's wrong. So I disconnected that about 6 months ago, and I've had a much better driving experience without that fake engine noise being played through that cabin dedicated speaker. Secondly, so the real engine noise is not good either. And everyone's, you know, rolling their eyes and saying, well, yeah, it's a Subaru, it's a boxer engine, it's not going to sound like that. It sounds like a tractor engine, it's an agricultural engine, yada, yada, yada. All those things are right, and I knew that going in. I don't expect it to be an inline 4 from Honda, but still, there's a lot of clacky and just a lot of noises that are somewhat unsettling. Even I've tried to mentally train myself over the last 18 months to just know that it's okay and that's just what it's meant to sound like and do. But still, it is unsettling to me. I haven't been able to get over that, and maybe that's a me thing, but I have a feeling there's other people out there who haven't owned a bunch of Subarus. This is my first Subaru and my first boxer engine, and it's hard for me to get over. It just feels unsettling, like I say. So it's, as far as smoothness goes, it's pretty smooth. It vibrates a fair amount at idle, but once you get it up, above 2,000 RPM and through the rev range, it's pretty smooth. But the noises it makes are not inspiring in the way that you'd get, from a V8, LS engine, obviously, or an inline 4 from Honda, or a B&W straight 6. I mean, just don't come into this car thinking you're going to get an audible experience that is on par with some of those more famous engines. It's very agricultural and uninspiring in a lot of instances as far as the engine noise goes. Another dislike I have is the clutch engagement, and so this has been a hot topic on the forums. People complain about it being so vague from the factory, and it is. There's a way to fix that is removing your stock clutch spring, which I've done in my car. I did that just a few months into ownership, and it completely transformed how the clutch felt in a better way. It made it a lot heavier, which was fine because it was super light from the factory, but it just gave you the feel of the friction point so much more, which was great. And so some people put aftermarket springs in it, but I've just left the spring out and really haven't found that there's been any pedal clutch play, or when you're not pressing on the clutch, it's not rattling around and it doesn't feel like it's harming the car or the transmission in any way. But that said, shifting from 1 to 2, first gear to second gear, is nearly impossible to make smooth for whatever reason. It seems like all the other gears in this car, all the other shifts, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 6, or 5 to 6, you can do really smoothly, but 1 to 2 is just tough, and the clutch feel between 1 and 2 and the engagement is poor. And I don't think that's just in my car. It could be. I've taken it to the dealer and asked them about this, and they drove it, and I rode in it with the tech. He said, oh yeah, it's just normal. And I actually drove a different car too, and it felt the same. So I don't think it's just my car. But what happens and what it feels like is going from 1 to 2, and I'll actually do it here. This may not come across on camera, but I'll start in first, a little rolling start there, shift to second, and I'll have the clutch all the way out, past the friction point. It'll be completely out, and my foot will be off the clutch. And the clutch the flywheel in the car doesn't seem, it still feels like it's slightly slipping. Like there's almost 2 steps to the clutch when you're shifting from first to second gear. So there's the initial friction point, and you're letting off the clutch all the way, and then there's like a jerk after that, and it's almost impossible. Every now and then it shifts perfectly from 1 to 2, but most of the time it doesn't. And again, I've been driving a stick for a long time and never had an issue with it. I feel like I'm pretty good with it, and this one is just I don't know what it is, but it's not smooth between 1 and 2, I will say that. And it's like a clutch slipping sensation a little bit, again, just between first and second. And I'm just talking about regular acceleration, not full throttle. But in fact, full throttle, the clutch actually gets better, and so does the Rev Hang for that matter, when you're really getting after it. But around town, and there it is again, it's just a pop-up. But when you're really getting after it, the Rev Hang issue kind of goes away, and that 1 to 2 issue goes away, mainly because you're not shifting down into 1 ever when you're really driving it hard, unless you're just launching it and abusing it. Yeah, the 1-2 shift from a regular start at normal everyday drive around town speeds is impossible, nearly impossible to get right, and perfectly smooth like all other gears. The next dislike I'll talk about is the gas mileage and the requirement for premium fuel. I didn't come into this car thinking, I'm gonna get a Honda Civic gas mileage with the mid 30s to high 30s, maybe even touching 40 miles per gallon on the highway. I didn't come into this car buying, something for fuel economy. However, it is a 2.4 liter engine, and it's a boxer engine, and you'd think it might eke out a little bit better than 27 miles per gallon on average. I think my computer in the car is saying 27.4 miles per gallon, And I've kind of just let that ride for a long time, so that's a great average for the type of driving I do, which is around town and some highway. And that's not bad. That might be slightly above what EPA says too. But when you're paying for premium fuel, the cost per mile is quite a bit more expensive than, say, a Civic Sport Touring or a Civic Si. Again, you can't compare those cars as far as driving dynamics to this go, but I'm just stating that, you know, 27 miles per gallon is basically what you're going to expect to get on the best situation, in the best situation, and you're still paying for premium fuel. So it's not the cheapest small car to run. I guess that's the way to say it. For any car under 3,000 pounds, I would imagine this is one of the more expensive per mile to operate. So those are 5 likes and dislikes that I have for this 2022 Subaru BRZ after owning it for about 18 months and driving it for almost just under 14,000 miles. A lot of good and a few negatives too. And so you want to be sure you know what you're getting into if you're going to purchase this as your daily driver, like I did a year and a half ago. I'm actually selling it because I feel like I've kind of had my fun in it. It's been a great car. It's been reliable for me. You know, granted, I don't have many miles on it. But I have decided I want something that's a little more point A to point B, and I'm not looking for a super engaging drive every time I get in the car, which is what you do get with this car. And so if that's what you're looking for, then it's probably a great option, and maybe the best option for you given the money and the functionality and utility space that it has. So just know what you're buying before you get into it, and if you're buying it for the right reasons, I'm sure you'll love it. And it actually has been one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. So I can't really say much bad about it, but it's not what I want at this point in life as a daily driver. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.